Women have had to fight so many battles for their rights, from voting to land ownership. It's a matter of equality. Them joining the military is another battle they've had to fight. This is the conflict and compromise of women in the military. During the time of the Revolutionary War, women were only allowed to serve in military camps as cooks, nurses, laundresses, mechanics, and occasionally spies. During the Civil War, approximately 6,000 women were employed as nurses, 181 being black. In World War I, over 12,000 nurses were employed in 198 locations. Female nurses could achieve relative status. It means they earned less pay and less status than their male counterparts. Florence Nightingale, a nurse in the Crimean War, was born on May 12, 1820 in Florence, Italy. When she told her wealthy parents she wanted to pursue her dreams of being a nurse, they forbid her from doing so. She was active in philanthropy when she was young and participated in helping the poor near her family's estate. She improved the sanitary conditions of the hospital she worked in and saved many lives. She also established a laundry to clean linens, a classroom, and a library.
Your name is?
Alice
And your last name?
Malinowski. What started me going to the Army was they had a nurses' convention in Missoula when I was working there. And my friend and I were listening to this Navy nurse. She was pretty, all dressed in uniform. And so we decided we'd join the Navy. And then I went to work at the hospital in the nurses' dining room to earn some money to go into nursing. And some of those older nurses were so nasty to our little people who had to be on the lower level. And I decided when I get through school, I'm never going to treat anybody like that. But I did, and I enjoyed being an Army nurse. It was different. But I liked the regulation. And of course, we never knew from one day to the next where we were going or what we were going to be doing, but we had a good cruise.
Rosie the Riveter encouraged women to join during World War II. WAAC provided opportunities to women and persuaded the government to let them serve when the country was not in an emergency. Before women were allowed to fight, they had to dress as men to be soldiers. Deborah Sampson disguised herself as a man in Washington's army as Robert Shirtliff. She was discovered to be a woman after she was wounded in battle. She fought between 1782 and 1783. During the Mexican War, Elizabeth Newcomb registered as Bill Newcomb in the Missouri Volunteer Infantry. She marched 600 miles to Colorado winter camp before being discovered. During World War II, nearly 400,000 women served in non-combat roles in the military. They worked as nurses, ambulance drivers, mechanics, and other technical roles. 88 of those women were taken prisoner and 16 were killed. In 1948, after the war, Congress passed the Women's Armed Services Integration Act. The passing of this act allowed women to serve as permanent members of the U.S. military. Before this was passed, women were only allowed to serve in times of war.
My name is Captain Joanna Heigl with the United States Coast Guard, and I am a part of the Coast Guard Reserve currently and have been in the Coast Guard Reserves for 18 years. Before that, I did 5 years of active duty, and before that, I graduated from the United States Coast Guard Academy in New London, Connecticut in 1995.
So, what are some struggles and conflicts that you have overcome being a woman in the military?
That's a good question. A lot of times it's just maybe a perception from your coworkers as a woman. I had an interesting experience a couple years back. When I was on the law enforcement detachment, we would deploy on different ships, and I believe it was during our first deployment, the BM1 that I was working with, who was my executive petty officer, had come in new to the team along with me, and we were standing outside one evening just kind of looking at the stars, and he said to me, "Ma'am, I gotta tell you something." Said when I found out that I was first coming to a law enforcement detachment, I was pretty excited, but then I found out that there was going to be a woman as the officer in charge. He said, and my warrant officer pulled me aside and said, "Oh boy, that's going to be really rough on you." He said, "There's only 2 types of women in the military." He said one is they feel like they need to be super tough and they won't listen to anybody. Or two, they're going to be weak and not be able to take charge and make decisions. And either way, it's just going to not be good. He says, ma'am, I have to tell you, you're none of the two. You know, it's challenges like that there's perceptions out there of how women are in the military, or maybe they get a job because they're a woman versus being qualified for the job. And you have to kind of overcome those perceptions by being really good at your job.
The Women's Armed Services Integration Act was very hard to pass. Women were working to get the public saying that they want women to be able to serve when there was no emergency and no war. It took almost 2 years to pass. It was passed on June 12, 1948, but there was still a long time before women got equality. Men expected Rosie the Riveter and other women activist campaigns to go away and give up on women's rights. In the Vietnam War, 1962 to 1972, 8 women were killed while serving in combat. Commander Elizabeth Barrett became the very first woman in the U.S. to hold command in a combat zone. A big turning point was when the first woman got admitted into 4 of the 5 military academies in 1976, the 4 being West Point, the U.S. Naval Academy, U.S. Coast Guard Academy, and the Air Force Academy. Women have experienced rape ever since they were joining the military, whether they were disguised as men or not. Army Specialist Sarah Reyes was raped by a member of her own platoon in Fort Stewart, Georgia. She now suffers from extreme anxiety and has a tendency to run away from things, a change from her old self. He was never arrested. Rape is a big struggle women go through in the military. It happens more often than most people would think. Rape in the military has been widely reported for years, yet there's not enough being done, and not enough has been done throughout history. January 24, 2013 marked the day the ban on women serving in combat roles was lifted. The Secretary of Defense, Leon Panetta, lifted the ban and allowed women to serve in ground combat with men. The goal was to make all jobs gender neutral, meaning if they meet the physical requirements, they can get considered for the roles.
My name is Erin Edwards, and I have been part of the NJROTC program at Port Angeles High School for 4 years, and I am getting ready to head off into my military career. Right now I have the options of either the Naval Academy, Coast Guard Academy, Air Force Academy, or an ROTC scholarship for the University of Washington. Through debating my options, the key question that I have asked men and women who are in the military is what it's like for women. The overall response that I've gotten is if women go into the military confident and true to the person who they are, then they will have just as many opportunities as men. In previous years, women have been restricted on the career options that they can pursue, but today, women can do anything, including be on submarines, special forces, you name it. Talking to a lot of military veterans, the thing you'll hear is that they really appreciated the family aspect of the military, and that the people they were working with were brothers and sisters, and they really got along well. I'm really excited to go to a military academy, specifically probably Coast Guard, where you have 200 or some odd classmates who are family. They're your best friends, they're your brothers, they're your sisters, and both men and women are working together to create the leadership background of the military for the United States of America. Today, over 35% of students at the Coast Guard Academy are women, and I'm really excited to join them and represent the strength of females around the world.
In December of 2015, Defense Secretary Ashton B. Carter said that the Pentagon will allow all combat jobs to be open to women. He said that there will be no exceptions. Women will be allowed to fight on the ground, by sea, and in the air. It was said that by 2016, all combat roles would be available. The decision opened 220,000 jobs to women. Today, women are a big and important part of the U.S. Armed Forces, with more than 200,000 serving right now. They make up 14.5% of soldiers in active duty. For over a century, women have had so much conflict during the process of being allowed to serve. Female soldiers being accepted in the military is an important part of women's rights and an important part of U.S. history.